Fox News alert: big changes in Republicans' tax reform push. Senate Republicans renewing an effort to deal a blow to Obamacare as they work on rewriting the tax code. The Senate working right now to include a repeal of the individual mandate in their bill. It's something that President Trump threw his support behind. The House version does not include a repeal of that mandate. But things could change. This is Outnumbered. Sandra Smith. I'm Sandra Smith, and here today is Harris Faulkner, Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Lisa Booth, the anchor of the Intelligence Report, Trish Regan, is here. And today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, the editor-in-chief of DailyWire.com and host of the Ben Shapiro Show. Ben Shapiro himself is here, and he is outnumbered.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you.
I've only seen you in pictures. Next to what you're writing or what you're talking about. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I'm human. Thank you. Yeah.
It's always good to have you.
Welcome.
And thanks for being here. Let's get started. Senate Republicans looking at repealing the individual mandate to help pay for tax cuts in their plan. This key piece of Obamacare requires Americans to get health insurance. Right now, the House bill does not include that repeal. President Trump is planning to make an in-person appeal to House Republicans before they vote tomorrow. Here's House Speaker Paul Ryan at a Fox News town hall last night on why the House bill does not include a repeal of the Obamacare mandate.
We didn't want to complicate tax reform and make it harder than it otherwise would be. The House did this already. The House passed our health care bill back in May, which repealed the individual mandate. So we're on record in favor of this. We want to see the Senate go first and see if they can get that done, and then we'll discuss whether or not it gets included at the end.
See if they can get it done. Let's go to Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel. He's live on Capitol Hill for us, where there is a lot going on today and this week. Mike?
Sandra, good afternoon. We expect plenty of fierce debate on tax reform on both sides of the U.S. Capitol this afternoon. The House is expected to debate a procedural aspect of its plan ahead of a vote on the House floor tomorrow on the House tax reform package. One issue stressing out some Republicans from high-tax states is, of course, the partial elimination of that state and local tax deduction.
So far, there's been no progress. I would say most of the New York delegation is going to vote no. I can't speak for all of them. We pay $48 billion every year to the federal government, more than we get back. We get 79 cents on the dollar.
On the Senate side, there's been some heated debate in the Finance Committee over their tax reform plan. This morning, the Senate Majority Leader talked about a major change that will include taking $338 billion from Obamacare to pay for tax cuts.
Last evening, the committee released a modified chairman's mark that, among other important elements, will effectively repeal Obamacare's individual mandate tax so that we can provide even more tax relief to low and middle income families. In short, the goal is to repeal an unpopular tax from an unworkable law in order to provide more tax relief to middle class families.
Missouri Democrat Senator Claire McCaskill vented her frustration with the changes on Twitter. We got this at 10:18 p.m. last night, expected to work on it at 10 a.m. today. This is nuts. What's the damn rush? Why can't we have a reasonable time to read and study? Another Senate Democrat says she isn't sold.
I can't imagine supporting this. I mean, this is, first of all, same old trickle-down economics that has never worked. They say it puts money in the pocket of middle-class families. It never does.
The key right now for Republican leaders here on the Hill is keeping GOP members pretty unified. If they do, some predict in the end some Democrats may come along and support tax reform. Sandra?
Mike Emanuel, thank you for that report. Sure. You set this all up for us. And Ben, I usually go to our One Lucky Guy first, but Trish is a bit outraged at what she just heard from that Michigan Democrat. You're objecting to her notion as tax cuts would boost the economy.
Right. She said, oh, it's the same old trickle-down economics. Well, first of all, if you look at the history books and you study the economy, you see that during the Reagan years, GDP grew on average an annual growth of 4%. And why did we get that 4% growth? We got it because we had tax cuts. So for her to say something like that, it doesn't work. She's wrong. Second of all, I would also add that the wealthy will pay more under this plan. So I wish the Democrats would actually try and get their talking points right. Ooh. The wealthy will pay more, and they're trying to say, oh, this is only going to benefit the wealthy. No, it's actually going to hurt high-income earners.
All right, and that was
what she said.
That was Pete King's point to me this morning, right, Ben? So he's saying this is going to hurt the people of his state. It's going to hurt in their pocketbooks. It's going to hurt them politically. He's obviously still a firm no on the House plan.
Well, you're going to see a lot of no's from places like California and New York because the House plan gets rid of the state tax deduction. So all the state income tax is no longer, you used to be able to count that against your federal income tax. Now you no longer can. So, you know, I'm going to pay a lot more taxes in California. The same thing is going to happen in New York. But listen, I'm not in love with the House tax plan, but obviously everything that you're saying is exactly correct. I mean, it's the idea that this is some sort of whopping tax break for the upper class is just not true.
It's not. And that's, I mean, it's as though they never even bothered to read the plan. They don't understand it. It's not benefiting high-income earners at all in any of these states like California or New York, which, by the way, these two states combined make up 22% of U.S. GDP. So they're nearly a quarter of the entire U.S. economy. So if things start to turn south in New York and California, you're running the risk that GDP as a nation starts to fall. So this state and local tax deduction thing is a big deal. I get it. Like fundamentally, I think we all understand it. It's not fair that New York gets to deduct and Texas doesn't.
But
have
it's
an
also
income tax.
it's also a big deal politically as well. And so that's also what the House and Senate are grappling with, because the House does not, or the Senate does not have the same concerns that members of the House do. Clearly, you saw Pete King express concerns as a representative of New York. There are a handful of vulnerable Republicans running for re-election in states like California, New York, New Jersey, which is also why we saw Congressman Darrell Issa, who only won by a couple thousand votes, come out against the House bill. In the Senate, you don't have those concerns because what Republican senators represent states like New Jersey, New York, and California. So that's also a key difference, what we're seeing in the House and Senate. And just real quick, in regarding the individual mandate, this is why Republicans wanted to get health care reform done before tax reform, so that it would allow for additional money to pay for tax cuts.
So the Senate is targeting that. Will the House? Because Paul Ryan has certainly left the door open. He said, I want to see what the Senate does with this, and things could change.
So I want to revisit this idea of SALT, the state and local tax deductions, just because it is more than just a few. There are 14 sending states, as we call them, those who put more into the federal government than they get resource money back. So it's more than just the East Coast states, and just a few, not a lot, but enough to make a difference, as we saw with the budget reconciliation vote. If we had had 2 more no's from Republicans in the House, we wouldn't be where we are now talking about tax reform, because they would need so many more votes in the Senate to get it done. They'd need so many more Democrats to get it done. So can they sweet talk, compromise something over SALT more than what the House is offering, a $10,000 slide rule on property tax? The Senate's going to have to give something. You know, they're going to have to give something, because Kevin Brady has said, the chairman of the Ways and Means, it's not going to go forward without SALT. He's not going to completely take that out, because he's got those 20 to 22 members who are going to say no.
I mean, they're saying they have the votes now. You heard Paul Ryan lead off the tax.
How'd they do when they whipped?
Town hall yesterday.
How'd they do when they whipped?
Channel.
Were they still talking about SALT?
When we were watching that last night, it really does remind you that this is such a deeply personal issue. You know.
Well, money, yeah.
I mean,
money, so religion.
No, but here we are. We're all constantly discussing the economics of this and crunching the numbers, and then you see those hands go up at that town hall who say, you know, they do fear that they're going to get left out in this plan and actually pay more.
Well, you know, Sandra, the reality is that people have seen their taxes go up, 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 and they've seen their income go down, 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 or at least not move higher adjusted for inflation. So people are really up against it. They've had to manage their own pocketbooks very well during a very difficult time over the last decade. And so they're saying to themselves, why hasn't the government been able to manage its pocketbook? Why can't the government balance its
By the way, it's our money in their pocketbook.
Exactly.
It's not even like they're managing their own money.
So it is personal. To your point, it's very personal.
All right, so
it's all ours.
So will we see the House address the individual mandate that we are seeing happening in the Senate right now? Guidance from the Hill is that we would see a lot of struggle with the House bill. Moderates would have a huge problem with that. Will they go there?
Well, I mean, it does cause the possibility of a death spiral in Obamacare prices unless they backfill it with a bunch of federal funding. So, I mean, this is the part that nobody wants to talk about. We can talk about getting rid of the individual mandate, but when the prices start to spiral out of control, who's going to own that now? Is it going to be the Republicans who repealed the individual mandate and then didn't provide the federal funding, or are they going to provide the federal funding and then they're responsible for Obamacare?
The president started with the subsidies, and you knew what he was trying to do. He wanted to force their hand. They had 7 years to come up with a plan.
Yep.
Can he force their hand?
But to that point, real quick, that's also why you say that they're, or at least in the Senate, that they're going to pass this along with the Alexander Murray bill as well, because that addresses the subsidies and the issue that you're talking about, and that's why people like Senator Collins, that's what they want to see. Exactly.
All right, and coming up on Outnumbered Over Time, Harris will be talking about much more on taxes with two big guns. House Ways and Means Chair Kevin Brady